Our ship has arrived off the coast of Russia in the Black Sea. We were scheduled to load a cargo of coal, but due to port congestion, we were told to drop anchor and wait for further instructions. For bulk carrier ships, it is quite normal to wait at the anchorage area before proceeding into port. Sometimes it only takes a few hours, sometimes a few days, but sometimes it could even take many weeks of waiting before ships could finally go alongside. It has been more than a week since our ship dropped anchor. We had to endure cold weather, and due to rough sea and strong winds, we had to heave up our anchor and run the engine from time to time. Eventually, our turn to enter port came, and loading operations began. Our port stay was quite uneventful, and after about 3 days, we were able to finish cargo operations and left the port. From there, we headed offshore to rendezvous with a small tanker for bunkering operations. After that, we resumed our voyage to our discharging port in Egypt. This time, our port is in the southern part of Egypt, so once again, we had to transit the Suez Canal. Our ship arrived here at our discharging port here in Sukna, Egypt. We arrived late last night, around midnight. Finally, I received great news. After 8 months of working here on board the ship, I'll finally be able to go home. As per the information that we have received from the office, my reliever will be coming on board. He'll be arriving here, I think tomorrow. Once he arrives, we'll have around 1 day of handing over. I'll show him what he needs to know to take over the responsibilities as chief engineer. And then after that, the following day, I'll be signing off. My contract was originally just for 6 months, but of of course, due to logistics and the location that our ship went to. And then also factor in the COVID situation. It was quite difficult for the office to send my reliever on time. Well, even without the pandemic, this actually happens a lot. So it's pretty common, especially if you're working on board bulk carriers, that you're going to be extended sometimes. Yeah, most of the time. Anyway, at least, well, after 8 months of working here on board with almost no shore leave, I'll finally be able to go home. So before we sign off, it is required here in this port to have a swab test done, for COVID. So I'm going to go down now to have my swab test. I know that some viewers feel strongly against COVID restrictions and are against getting tested, wearing masks, or getting vaccinated. Sometimes even to the point of mocking other people who undergo these precautions. But take note, I've been away from home for 8 months. So if our host country allows us to go home, provided we comply with their requirements, I wouldn't even think twice. Some countries outright refuse to let seafarers disembark. So complying with these requirements is not really that big of a deal for me. Okay, so my reliever is already here on board. Chip. We're currently handing over our documents and files and everything. And I'm scheduled to sign off, I think, this afternoon. So finally, after 8 months, I'll be able to go home. I'm signing off today. Before we disembark, the chief cook prepared a special farewell lunch for us, which also served as a welcome lunch for the new crew. The engine cadet was supposed to sign off with us, but unfortunately his reliever tested positive, so his flight was cancelled. It's time to go home. Yeah. Kunin mo na yun. Bye-bye! Finally! Okay, so after leaving the ship, it took us about 2 hours travel by car to reach Cairo. And since our flight is scheduled for tomorrow afternoon, we will be staying at a hotel overnight. The schedule was quite hectic today because everything was a little bit rushed. So I wasn't even able to take a shower before leaving the ship. So anyway, since I know Since I knew that we will be staying at a hotel, I said, okay, I'll just take a shower at the hotel. So for tonight, I'll just have dinner, take a shower, and then relax. So tomorrow, we're going to be flying back to the Philippines. Our stay at the hotel was quite welcome, as it gave us a chance to ease our minds away from the responsibilities we had while on board the ship. We had a long series of flights ahead of us before we reached home, so one night of relaxation was just what we needed. After breakfast, we were brought to the airport in time for our first flight. Our first stop was in Doha, Qatar. There we had to wait 8 hours for our next flight. The next stop was in Cebu. But although we were already in the Philippines, this was not yet our final stop. We're checking in the hotel right now for quarantine. So I'll be quarantined for about 5 days before I take the swab test again. And if it's negative, I get to go home. So finally, after about 2 days of traveling, we finally arrived here at Cebu City, where we will be quarantined for about 1 week or so, something like that. So right now I'm checked in at SIDA Hotel Ayala Center in Cebu City, where I will be spending the week in quarantine. Thanks to a good internet connection, 5 days went by really fast. And before I knew it, I was up for another swab test. Spoiler alert, my test turned out negative.
Okay.
Okay na.
Bigay ko po, sir. Say, relax lang, sir. Tagilid lang po. Okay, balik na
Okay, so the shuttle is here. It's time to go to the airport. The flight from Cebu to Manila only takes about 1 hour, so we were on the final stretch. So finally I'm here in Manila, just waiting for my survey. I think it's here now. As always, my wife and my sister came to pick me up at the airport. Hello everyone. Okay, so for those of you who have been following my channel for quite some time, especially those who follow my Facebook page, you already know that there is a big time jump from this episode to the present day. The events in this video happened way back in March of 2021, at the height of strict quarantine protocols. And because of those protocols, I decided to stay at home until things settled down a little bit. So for 15 months, I was just enjoying my time at home. But thankfully, things did settle down a bit. So about 2 months ago, I once again signed up for another contract. It's an older ship compared to the last 3 ships I've featured in my channel, so it kept me quite busy. Got my hands full. There were a lot of things that required my personal attention, so I didn't really have much time or energy to edit any videos. Until now. Don't worry, I was able to shoot a lot of interesting footages during that time, especially in the engine room. I just haven't gotten around to editing them yet. Anyway, new ship assignment, new adventures. Welcome to season 4.